common mistake in writing a proposed endeavor that I've seen out there when people are applying for the national interest waiver, it's focusing too much on personal career goals rather than demonstrating the national impact of their work. Applicants often mistakenly describe their field of work or specific services they will provide instead of clearly outlining the national goal or mission of their work will achieve and its significant impact on the United States. A proposed endeavor is a detailed outline of your professional activities or project that you plan to pursue in the United States. This plan should actually focus on the national importance of your work. It must show that it benefits more than just your employer or a specific group of people or a specific state. USCIS is requesting us to provide a description explaining your proposed endeavor and supporting documentary evidence to establish that the proposed endeavor is of national importance. Now, they use the term endeavor, and I describe it as more than a specific plan rather than general occupation that you asking you to provide details more than just a career goal that you propose to undertake. Now, what I think I understand is that when explaining the proposed endeavor, you should do so in a straightforward manner and clearly lay out the potential direct impact of the endeavor and whether the endeavor will be furthered through the course of your duties at a particular employer or some other way, right? Now, when reviewing the proposed endeavor, officers determine whether the evidence presented demonstrates by a preponderance of evidence the proposed endeavor has substantial merit and national importance. Now, the term endeavor is more specific than a general occupation, as a petitioner should offer details not only as to what the occupation normally involves, but what type of work the person proposes to undertake, specifically within that occupation. Now, I think that, like looking at, for example, that while an engineer is an occupation, the explanation of the proposed endeavor should describe the specific projects and goals and the area of engineering in which the person will work, rather than simply listing the duties and responsibilities of an engineer. Now, when explaining the endeavor, the petitioner should do so in a straightforward manner and clearly lay out the potential direct impact of the endeavor and whether the endeavor will be furthered through the course of the person's duties at a particular employer or some other way. Now, the endeavor merit may be demonstrated in areas including but are not limited to business, entrepreneurship, now science and technology, culture, health, or education. Now, when we think about this thing, I want us to understand that these things can be broken down in different ways. And I think that in the course of, being a writing analyst at Dozikaho, I have seen people make mistakes because they don't understand what this proposed endeavor it's all about. And speaking of mistakes, I would love to give you simple mistakes that I've seen that people have made and how I think that you could actually, fix this mistake so that you could get an approval. Now, speaking of mistakes, here are more detailed breakdown of common mistakes that people make. Number one, they fail to clearly articulate the proposed endeavor and its national impact. Now, what I'm trying to explain here is that the proposed endeavor should be a concise statement that is one to two statements aligning the national goal or mission the applicant aims to achieve. Now, it should go beyond simply describing the field of work and demonstrating how the work will significantly benefit the United States. Now, examples might include contribution to the U.S. economy and society, culture, or workforce. Now, you will recall that I used the word 1 to 2 sentence. Now, I'm not sure if you can successfully articulate your proposed endeavor, the impact in 1 to 2 sentences. if you can go further than that to give a more elaborate, in-depth detail, I would advise you to do that in more than, up to 5 to 10 sentences, as long as it carries a detailed overview of the impact. Another thing that I think that people do is that they're focusing on personal benefits rather than national interest. Now, I think that I would recommend that petitioners emphasize on how their work will benefit the nation as a whole, not just the individual career prospect. And they should avoid languages that focus on personal achievement or career advancement without linking it to national benefit. And sometimes USCIS sends RFE because they feel that the proposed endeavor, it benefits the employer more than the nation, right? Or it benefits a particular area more than it does not extend nationally. So I think that when you want to articulate the national importance of your proposed endeavor, you should find somehow to tie it to something that extends beyond your employer. And I think that this happens most of the time when people already have a job and they are coming up with a proposed endeavor. USCIS sometimes understands this as something that benefits their employer rather than the entire nation. So my advice for you is that you should try to compose your proposed endeavor as something that extends beyond your employer. It's not only your employer that benefits from it, that the entire nation will benefit from it economically, socially, and it's going to advance the societal welfare of America. Another thing that I think you should do is that you should demonstrate how your proposed endeavor aligns or supports existing national priorities or policies. By this, I think that you should provide evidence and example of how your work will contribute to addressing national challenges or opportunities. Now, one thing I think that people fail to do, they fail to demonstrate the uniqueness of their national importance. And I will say that you should show why your work is unique and not readily available from other, sources in the United States. And what I would recommend is and highlight the experience that makes your work valuable to the nation. Like I mentioned before, that an endeavor that benefits an employer is one of the things that people fail to articulate very well. Because USCIS, USCIS require an endeavor that has a national importance, and at issue that is this is something that whether it is going to benefit more than a group of people or a particular employer, and or something that extends beyond a particular region. For example, a person developing a drug for a pharmaceutical company may establish national importance by demonstrating the prospective public health benefits of the drug, instead of solely projecting the profits that will accrue to the employer. Now, this is one way you could do that. Now, another mistake that I've seen out there is that people rely on outdated or irrelevant arguments. And I would recommend that you avoid using arguments about labor shortages or regional needs unless they directly relate to a broader national interest. Now, I would recommend that you focus on demonstrating a national benefit of the proposed endeavor, not just local or regional needs. In addition to this, I've noticed that people are not providing sufficient evidence to back up the national importance of their proposed endeavor. And I would recommend that you provide credible evidence and letters from experts in your field, research, and other relevant documentation in order to ensure that the evidence directly supports the claim made about the proposed endeavor and its national impact. Now, speaking of this whole proposed endeavor, I want to shift a little bit to discuss how, if you've seen my previous video about the petitioner that I help who wants to open a church, and that one is a very clear example of how you articulate a proposed endeavor and you tie it to the national importance of the United States. And when I started working on the petition, when they brought it to me, the person was wanting to open a church, and one of the things that I articulated did not substantially rise up to the level of national importance, because when you think about people opening a church or starting a church as a religious director, you try to wonder, what is this person going to do that will benefit the United States? And keep in mind, this is a non-STEM, proposed endeavor, and since it is non-STEM, it tends to be a little bit difficult to articulate in a manner that would, rise up to the level of national importance. And this is where I tell people that you have to think outside the box. That when you are articulating a proposed endeavor, you should treat it like something, or let me use it this way: you should treat it like a project that has chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and chapter 4. Now, what do I mean by that? It is one proposed endeavor. It has so many things inside, like chapters that are connected to the main ideas of the endeavor, that when you put the whole steps together, it comes out as something that is perfectly woven and something that benefits the United States. Now, coming back to the person that I spoke about, they were, coming up with ideas that they will help people provide like a place where they will wed people, same-sex marriage. And when you look at it in one way, it seems that helping people, joining people, same-sex marriage, is something that has enough evidence that helps the United States, help people of marriage equality. But at that time, USCIS does not consider it as something that rises up to the level of national importance. Another thing that was in the previous petition before they brought it to me was, helping the United States was helping church members with their tax filing. Now, if you've ever heard of United Way, I think that is the name. The United Way is an organization, it's a non-profit organization located in most churches. And what they do, they are trained by the county, the local county, and they help people file their taxes, people of low income status. Now, it was put in the petition, and USCIS looked at it and they said, no, this is not something that rises up to the level of national importance. And another thing that I remember that was put in the petition is providing counseling to people that are spiritually, troubled, and, preaching good sermons and helping people with some spiritual upliftment, right? But the USCIS was not convinced that that is of national importance. And this is where I tell people that a good proposed endeavor is what you need to win your petition. And what did I do? I had a strategic thinking. I came up with a proposed endeavor that will help Americans struggling with alcohol from a faith-based angle to deal with alcohol abuse and substance abuse. And in addition to this, we also came up with a proposed endeavor, writing that we are going to, create a food bank. And if you have been in most churches in the United States, there are places where people come to get free food and they share food. And if you've been to food banks before, most food banks in the United States are owned by churches. And this was something that was not thought about when they wrote the previous petition before bringing it to me. It was when I shifted the focus to the point of creating a food bank that people come to church, you feed them with the word of God, and you give them food for their stomach. And with that, you're fighting hunger in the church, right? And you're fighting hunger. And, food bank, it's something that touches a larger spectrum of people, like in a county or so, because people come far and wide to get food at most food banks, in my opinion, right? And the way we articulated this whole thing, in addition to the helping people from a faith-based angle, Americans dealing with substance abuse and alcohol, issues, right? Now, USCIS accepted this, and that was how the case was approved. In addition to that, we came up with a proposed endeavor that we are going to, as part of starting a religious organization, that is a church, we are going to employ people, accountants and administrative assistants that is going to help us with managing the books, the bookkeeping in the church, and we'll find enough evidence that almost all churches have an administrative assistant that help them with the books and with the whole thing. And if you understand how churches run, religious organizations, they get money from tithe and offerings. And if they're getting this money, how would they calculate how much was given? And that is where we'll have to tie the main activities in the church to the proposed endeavor that the church is going to employ Americans who are going to be people, helping to calculate the money and, help Americans reduce unemployment in the United States. Now, when you look at it, critically, most churches in the United States, employ 1 or 2 persons in the church that serve as administrative assistants, right? And most churches in the United States also help 1 or 2 ways with fighting hunger, with their food banks and etc. And this is where I believe that you could articulate your proposed endeavor, find enough evidence to support your claims. Now, speaking of finding evidence, now you should also understand that when you're writing the proposed endeavor, there are 2 things that is in the Prong 1 in the EB2 NIW that you have to demonstrate that the proposed endeavor has substantial merit and is of national importance. Now, speaking of substantial merit, you just need to find enough documentary evidence to demonstrate that this proposed endeavor has merit in itself. Now, where do you find the evidence to provide? Now, you have to be looking at whitehouse.gov. You have to go also to Congress to find bills that have already been signed into law to support the evidence that your proposed endeavor is of national importance. Now, in addition to finding evidence from the White House and at congress.gov, you should keep in mind that you want to find evidence to demonstrate that your proposed endeavor impacts a government matter that the U.S. government deem of national importance. And what do I mean? You should find bills, documentary, executive orders that supports the national importance of your work. That is to say that there might be a law that has been passed out by the current administration. Now, when I say the current administration, you should focus on the current administration because they are the ones in power, and anything they deem to be of national importance, any law that they are passing is going to, help support the argument that your proposed endeavor is of national importance. Now, coming back to document that supports that your proposed endeavor impacts a government matter that the government deem of national importance. By that, I'm speaking of documentary evidence from White House again, whitehouse.gov, congress.gov, documents out there. It could be executive order, it could be a bill passed by Congress, right? It could be something that a senator is proposing, or something that is in the congressional research that's been published out there. It could also be something that the government is interested in. Now, these are documents that you are going to use to support the national importance of your proposed endeavor. You should also understand that when you're crafting your proposed endeavor, you should be able to show USCIS that your proposed endeavor would help support the economic growth of the United States. Now, with that, you should be looking for documents from Department of Commerce, Department of Labor Statistics, something that has to do with the economic growth of the United States, showing that if you continue doing this, it's going to help the United States, prosper economically. Now, coming back to the proposed endeavor of the lady that wants to start a church. Now, think about it, that if you remove a lot of people that are dealing with alcohol and substance-related abuses from the streets through a faith-based way, Now, how many people do you think that are going to have to contribute to the labor force? Now, if there are 100 people in the streets dealing with this kind of substance abuse, and you help them recover through a safe, faith-based way, you are actually helping people get back to the workforce. And the more people you have on the workforce, the more they can contribute to the economy of the United States. Now, it is not enough to say it. You have to find documents that demonstrate that the more people recover from alcohol and related abuse, right, they can contribute to the economic growth of the United States. And I assure you there are documents out there. You should be able to find documents, research articles that are published out there to support this argument. Another thing that USCIS is looking for that will help you substantiate the argument that your proposed endeavor is of national importance is by giving them documents to demonstrate that your proposed endeavor will help people in an economic depressed area. Now, by economic depressed area, you should think about the rural areas in the United States. Now, you could be able to find documents to demonstrate that if you implement this proposed endeavor, it's going to help people in the rural area, spur economic growth, or help a particular economic area recover economically. Now, when we look at it, maybe from a health perspective, let's say, for example, you are doing a research or you are doing a cancer research. A cancer research may not actually help people in an economic depressed area, but it's going to help improve the societal well-being of the United States, because a lot of people suffer from cancer-related sicknesses. And if you come up with a particular research that has potential to improve the cancer research, right, and it's being administered in the United States, you are actually helping, improve the health outcome of the United States, and at the same time, you're actually helping the United States advance, in cancer research more than any other country in the world. Like, you want to do comparison, like China is doing this research, but if you do this research in the United States and it's, and you show evidence that this research is working, right, it's going to help the United States, overcome many cancer-related issues, and the government is going to save money in cancer-related sicknesses. And not only the government is going to save money, that Americans, is going to save money if they have, a pathway to deal with this particular cancer issue. And speaking of cancer, there are a lot of evidence on whitehouse.gov, going back on research on cancer or research on most diseases that are affecting America, like diabetes or chronic diseases like pain, right? If you are doing any research that you should be able to find evidence to demonstrate that your proposed endeavor will enrich Americans, is going to help them save money, or is going to support the economic growth of America. Because if a particular pharmaceutical company, start mass producing the medicine, is going to, help the economy, employ more Americans, and put money back in the pockets of Americans. And this is all I have for you. Keep in mind that a proposed endeavor should be well articulated, and it is something that you should be able to demonstrate that it has substantial merit and is of national importance. A proposed endeavor, like I mentioned, should be treated like a project you do, like a honors thesis that has 4 chapters, and the 4th chapter should be able to demonstrate that, number one, it impacts a government matter that the government has deemed of national importance. Number 2, it should be able to enrich the nation economically, that is going to spur an economic growth, right? Number 3, it should be able to employ Americans and create jobs for Americans. And number 4, it should be able to demonstrate with supporting evidence from White House, from National Archives, to demonstrate that it's going to help people in an economic depressed area. It's most proposed endeavor, or not all proposed endeavor, is going to have these 4 chapters. But I think that if your proposed endeavor covers at least 3 of these chapters and it captured these 3 out of these 4, your proposed endeavor or your Prong 1 will get approval. If you think that this video has helped you, I want you to go ahead, like my video, subscribe to my channel, and share this video with your family and friends. Again, my name is Chidozie, and I make these videos to help people who are self-petitioning to achieve success in their EB2 NIW or in their immigration journey. I will see you in my next video. Peace.